Hi everyone. I'm so glad you're here. If you're here, you're probably not just curious about what's schooling. You felt the pull. Like there's a different way of life, more freedom, more time, more connection with your kids. But at the same time, it feels big, maybe even overwhelming, and you're stuck somewhere between I really want this and how would I even make this work? If that's you, you're at the right place. A few years ago, I was living what looked like a good life, stable job, routine, doing everything I was supposed to. But inside, I was exhausted, disconnected, and constantly feeling like this can't be it. There must be more to life than just going to work. I barely had time for my daughter. Everything felt rushed and rigid. And then one day hit me. If I keep going like this, I will miss our life, miss her life. So I did something that honestly felt terrifying at the time. I quit my job, packed up everything, and we started traveling. It was no perfect plan, just a decision that something had to change. And what I discovered wasn't just travel, it was choice. Freedom of choice, really. Choice however we want to live, how we spend our time, how my daughter is experiencing the world. And that's what Worldschooling really gave us. It showed us that a different way of life was actually possible. It was not easy, not instant, but possible. And that's the part I wish somebody had shown me earlier, not just that this lifestyle exists, but how actually to move towards it without blowing up your whole life, uh, which I did. Because when I first started, everything felt big. Everything felt really unknown. Money, schooling, logistics, everything. So I think that's where people get stuck. Um, Most people think they're stuck because they don't know enough, or they need a better plan or more research, or they're not ready yet. But that's not actually the real issue. The real problem is the unknown feels so big. Your brain treats it like danger, like it's unsafe because it's completely unknown to you as this way of life because you're used to something completely different. So instead of moving forward, you stay in research mode, overthinking, and going in circles, wanting it, but also being afraid of it. So you start telling yourself that maybe this isn't realistic for me, or no. But it is not unrealistic, it's just unclear. So instead of trying to figure everything out all at once, I created a simple framework that I use with families. It's called a Freedom Map framework, and it breaks down the journey into three different parts. M is for mindset, and this is where most people get stuck and don't move forward, not because you're not capable, but because of thoughts like, what if I can't handle it? What if it's not safe? What if I fail my kids? These aren't facts, these are just protective patterns that made up in your mind. And when you don't address them, it's really hard to move on. A is for align. This is where we look at your life, your real life. This is your point A from where you actually want to go to point B, which is word schooling. This is your finances, your work, your family situation, just to understand what actually needs to shift because most people either overestimate the difficulty or underestimate what's already working. The P is for plan and prepare. This is the part where everyone gets things that they need first, but without the first two, it becomes overwhelming really fast. So this is where we turn your vision into a timeline, a rough plan, and real next steps. Very usable first plan so that you get started on this journey. So let's make this real for a minute because one of the biggest reasons it feels overwhelming is that everything is sitting in your head. That, it's a big, big change. So instead of trying to solve everything all at once, I want you to break this down what actually needs to be figured out at first. Not like 20 things, only four things. And once you understand these four, everything starts to feel a lot more manageable. The first that everybody is worried about is income. And this is usually the biggest fear. And most people think this is that I need to have a fully stable online business before I even consider this, or have to have immense amount of savings. But that's not true. What you actually need is like a bridge, something that covers your basic monthly costs until you transition into this lifestyle. For example, what I see a lot of families do is like keep a remote job and negotiate it to be flexible, um, move into a part-time job or start something small online before they leave. Or like I know people who saved for a whole year and then used that money for the first few months to start this journey. And the key question here is, how do I make loads of money? That's what people think, but it is not really. It's what's the simplest way to cover our lifestyle while we test this? Because our costs often drop when you're traveling slowly. You don't run the same life anymore, so your costs will be likely less unless you go into full tourist mode. You can choose low-cost countries. You'd be surprised how cheaper life can be when you don't live in the US or UK or any Western country, really. So this becomes much more doable than it feels right now. You just have to get your non-negotiables in place, what you can't live without, and then find a place where the cost of living is way cheaper. The second one is education that I usually hear, schooling. So a lot of fear comes up, especially for moms. What if I mess up my child's education? But here's what's important to understand. There isn't one right way to do this. Families do this in many different ways. Actually, homeschooling, structured or online curriculums, online schools, or completely unschooling, where learning happens through life, travel, and experiences, or a mix of these. Um, and what matters most isn't picking the perfect system, it's choosing something that fits your child, your values, or your lifestyle. And you can adjust as you go. This is not a one-time irreversible decision. You can always adjust as you travel. And kids are very versatile and learn way quicker in world-schooling circumstances, especially if they get to do something that they love. And there are many online schools and umbrella schools that can cover their unusual learning journey so that you have something to prove that your child was actually educated. The third part is logistics. This is where your brain goes, visa, insurance, where do we go? What if something goes wrong? And all becomes a big, overwhelming mess. But in reality, you don't need to solve the whole world. You only need to choose your first step, not like a 5-year plan, just your first destination and roughly how long you're going to stay and the basics for one place. That's it. Everything else comes after. Most people overwhelm themselves by trying to plan everything all at once. But in reality, you might meet another family and decide to travel together to a completely different destination that you planned. Or you love the first place so much that you end up staying way longer. And the last one, this is the one that people don't think about enough, is what will you actually do day to day? Because people imagine we'll just travel and everything will be amazing and we go to these experiences, and you can do it that way. That's going to cost probably a lot more, but the real Worldschooling life is way slower and more routines and more grounded than the Instagram people show. You still work, you can still cook, do your chores, manage your children's learning, and deal with normal life things. The difference is you're doing it in a way that it feels more aligned and intentional instead of rushed and disconnected. So if you had a routine at home, best is to keep it, at least for the beginning, the first journey, and slowly transition into a more aligned lifestyle. See what works from your old life, and if it doesn't, then change it. But having routines, even like fluid ones, will make the transition way easier for your children and yourself as well. Now here's why I'm showing you this. When all of this sits in your head as one big lump, one big unknown, it feels impossible. But when you break it down like this, you start to see, okay, so this is actually a series of decisions, not one huge leap. And that's the shift. It's not from, I'm ready, but from, I can start actually figuring this out. What I want you to say is you don't need to have everything figured out. You just need clarity on your version of lifestyle and real steps forward, because confidence doesn't come before action, it comes from action. So if you're sitting there thinking, okay, this is actually makes more sense now, but I still don't know how to apply it in my life, That's why I created my 5-day Worldschooling transition challenge, which is not a passive course or a watch and forget training or just motivation. This is a personalized one-on-one coaching experience where we take everything we talked about today and apply it directly to your life, to your circumstances, to your constraints, and to your wants and desires. So at the end, you're not just thinking about it, but you actually have a real plan and that you can start working on. Um, you're not stuck in like maybe someday we'll do this, but you're actually standing in there that yes, I have now my little list and I can start actually transitioning. So I only take a limited number of people because it's like really personalized one-on-one. So if you want help figuring out your version of Worldschooling, message me Plan on Facebook and we'll have a quick chat to see if it's actually something that would be good for you and could help you start you on this journey. Well, thank you. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer. Just DM me.